are your 3 most important leadership lessons you learned and share, and why?
Well, one of the things that I feel really good about is I have been able to mentor several of my colleagues into the presidency. That was very important because I was strategic in knowing that I was doing that. And it only happened at the end of my tenure. I wish I had done that when I first became president, is to focus on several people, like my president at Columbia College did for me, to say, you're going to be president. Well, I finally did that with a young man by the name of DeJuan Wormack, who was my vice president for student affairs. And he was very outstanding in his work. And when I left, he said, Dr. Reed, I don't want to stay. I want to go. I've been invited to be a vice president. I said, don't do that. You stay right here because you're going to become a president. And I'd like you in 2 years to apply to be president. And he did, and he was a successful president at Harris-Stowe University, and now he is the incoming new president at Claflin University. And a couple more stories like that. So that was one thing I wish I had done earlier in my career, and I've done that for a couple of women. So that's one example. Other things that I could have done.
Other leadership lessons that you might even have learned to share with others.
Well, I think one of the things I did with my students, that I had a session, a listening session, where the students told me what was on their mind. And I asked the faculty and staff who were coming not to say anything, that I would raise several questions and we would just listen. That was the most valuable session that I had when I learned what the students of this generation are struggling with, unlike my generation. Unfortunately, I only held one of those sessions. I got so bogged down and busy with fundraising, administration, and attending meetings, I didn't follow up. I regret that because as you have new generations of students, the things that they're struggling with impact your curriculum, impacts the student services, and the support streams that you have in place. And I think that was a mistake. I wish I could go back and redo that. Those are 2 things I think of.
Any third one after talking about mentoring and about listening?
With my faculty. I wish I had listened a little bit more to the faculty as well as to the students. They had their meetings, the reports would come to me, but I didn't go and talk directly to the faculty. I allowed the Vice President of Academic Affairs, the Provost. I think presidents kind of lose touch with different constituent groups. My focus was so on the alumni for fundraising, so on donors, but right on the campus, I could have been more in touch and in tune with their voices.
Given that you founded a leadership journal for women in leadership, at Sharing the Vision, are there any additional leadership lessons to share, especially for women?
Women are viewed with a double standard. Some of the ways we communicate are misinterpreted. And when I talk to women, I talk about voice level, I talk about accountability, I talk about how to take a negative situation and flip it around, rather than to problem solve, to problem pose. And I think that some of the leadership traits that we have as women, we tend to go in from one organization to another utilizing the same traits, and we have not done a good job of evaluating the culture that we are approaching or that we are engaging in. And so I talk to teams of women when I'm mentoring them about understanding your constituent group, doing your background research, understanding how it's important not to overlay your bias on your constituent group. And I think as women, we need to have more sessions like that, because the women in my position have learned the hard ways about what doesn't work, and we can actually groom some of the younger women about how to do that. Let me give you an example. I had a young student who had, I guess, heard some negative things about me, so he decided he was going to charge me with some kind of whatever it was. So I told the dean, we laughed about it, I said, let him write up his description. So he brought a complaint over, so then I used a leadership technique. I said, well, to the student, through the dean, tell me some of the things you would like to have different. What are your complaints? The student was unable to identify that. But I was really teaching the student that if you're going to complain, you really have to have your documentation. You really have to know what you're doing. You don't voice it. I forced the student to get to that level to show the student that it was really kind of a nonsense type thing to do. By doing that, the staff member also understood not to overreact and not to decide that this was a bad situation. Was able to get the student in and talk, and the student just wanted a little attention. So I think a lot of times we, in dealing with leadership, we look at something at the face value. We don't dive deep to realize that there are more things that may be contributing to a student's unrest or concern, or a faculty or staff person. So I found myself engaging with a lot of people about problem posing rather than problem solving, because in problem solving you automatically think you have the solution or some solutions when that may not even be in the realm of the debate or the concern. So I was enlarging the student's viewpoint to say to him, what are you concerned about? And in reality, he just wanted his president to sit down and talk to him. That was an easy fix.